Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Jocks 94.5. If you missed any of the first hour, you can always download the podcast. We appreciate those of you that are listening up in Huntsville. We appreciate those of you that are listening down in Mobile. We hope everybody now, if they are heading back to work, if they were off work yesterday, or if they were home for work yesterday, if they were home for school yesterday, we hope everybody has a safe trip back. Safe travels. Stay warm. It's going to be chilly still today. Not too terribly bad, though. 19 degrees right now in Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, it could be worse. They are saying wind chill is way down below that. It actually bottomed out today, supposedly at around 13 degrees. That's not including wind chill, so it'll be a chilly one, especially for us that are not used to this winter weather. But it is all good. Be safe, be smart, and bundle up. We always look forward to our visits with Andy Burcham. He joins us every single week thanks to our friends at Craneworks. Well, Andy, I appreciate you being with us today. We need some Auburn flavor, so we know you can bring it because Cole is a little under the weather. We hope he's feeling better, and we hope that he gets back as soon as possible. But we need some love, man. We need some Auburn. There's way too much crimson in this show so far. Damian, of course, waving whatever color flag he decides to wave that
It's Ole Miss today.
It's Ole Miss today. Okay, well, for now. It was Clemson earlier because we had the Clemson guests, but now maybe it'll be Auburn here for the next 20 minutes or 15 minutes or so. Andy, how are you? Everything good?
It's chilly, 19 degrees on the plains, but sunny. So looking forward to Texas coming to town tomorrow. First time that Texas has played basketball in Auburn, and I wasn't even sure it had ever happened, but they played here on February 11th, 1911.
1911?
1911.
Let's hope that wasn't the final score.
I just read this, and I'm not even sure. The gym that they played in back then was close to Sanford Hall, if I'm not mistaken. So, anyway, first trip they've made here in a long time.
Well, that'll be neat. That'll be really neat. Yeah. Obviously, a massive win this past weekend. Historically significant win, first one in nearly 30 years. How do we qualify the win this weekend? How do we understand what exactly just went down?
Well, it was Auburn's first win in Gainesville in 30 years. And Auburn has taken some really good teams into Gainesville and not come out of there with a win. And Auburn's also faced some really good Florida teams in that 30-year span in Gainesville. Most significantly, though, for Auburn was that it went on the road and beat the number 15 team in the country, and it was not a fluke. Auburn jumped out early, had a 18-point lead at one point in the second half. Florida made the run that we all knew was coming. Florida thought that it had a lead in the second half on a goaltend that was challenged by Auburn and was wiped off the board. And at that point with the game, it set I believe the 7:51 mark tied. Auburn went on a 6-0 run at that point and then held off Florida and won by double digits in a very big win for Auburn. It extends Auburn's winning streak to 3. It wrapped up one of the best weeks that I can remember for Auburn men's basketball in quite some time, in which it went on the road and won both games. Its first 2 road wins of the season, at Ole Miss a week ago tonight, and then this past Saturday at Florida. And it moved Auburn above the 500 mark in the SEC at 4-3. So add all of those together, and that was it wrapped up a significant week for Stephen Pearl in that Auburn men's basketball program.
Just enormous. And I did think, to see that big lead wiped out. I mean, how often is it, and you do these games all the time, I would just watch them as a fan, I feel like anyone that makes an 18-point run and erases a deficit like that, especially at home, their odds of winning are like 97%. I feel like
Yeah.
it's just hard to stop that momentum. So, have you ever seen, I mean, how often do you see a team that erases a deficit like that and then ultimately Auburn stops the bleeding, finishes the way they finished, and kind of flips it on its head?
Rarely. You know, we saw it at Neville Arena, unfortunately, in the Texas A&M game. Auburn had a 16-point lead in the second half at home against Texas A&M, and A&M erased it, went up by 12. Auburn came back, had the shot at the buzzer that they thought that had won it. It was wiped off, and Auburn lost that ball game. So that was, I'm sure, fresh in the minds. Certainly was in my mind thinking back to that ball game, and this happened in Gainesville with over 10,500. I mean, the place was hopping, especially when Florida made that run. And Auburn found a way then to go on that 6-0 run. And although Auburn shot the ball better from the perimeter than it had in the previous two wins against South Carolina and at Ole Miss, it continued. And I think now Auburn's getting an identity from an offensive standpoint of getting the ball in the paint, in spite of the fact that Auburn at times is not the bigger ball club on the floor. But Keyshawn Murphy and Philip Jovich and Keyshawn Hall, and to a certain degree even Tahad Pettiford, are getting the ball to the rim right now. And Auburn only missed 2 free throws in that ball game, the entire game. Auburn shot 90% from the free throw line. But here's the biggest difference for Auburn of late, Mac. It's the way Auburn is playing defense of late. In its last 3 wins against South Carolina, on the road at Ole Miss, and on the road against Florida, Auburn is starting to find its identity from a defensive standpoint. And we were all wondering when that would come. We knew that it's a point of emphasis. I mean, the man that is the head coach was the defensive coordinator under his father.
Right.
And now that this team is starting to play defense like it has played defense in years past.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And like you said, I mean, Keyshawn Hall is like, he's been unbelievable. I mean, Keyshawn Murphy, one of the biggest plays of the game last week. It's just everybody's stepping up. It's depending on the day. It doesn't have to run exclusively through Tahad Pettiford. You know what I mean? That's what I think so fun about watching them, is that it's kind of a collective approach. And like you said, 2 missed free throws, and you're seeing now 10 for Florida. Big difference in the game naturally. But to hold Florida just 37% from the floor is pretty wild when you think about it. So a lot of people say that Bruce really coached with emotion, and that was amazing, right? But with Steven's approach, it's a little more analytical, maybe a little more math-based, and that's kind of helping the team collectively situationally. Like, how are their approaches different, and how have you seen Steven's approach pay dividends so far?
Well, and let me say this. Steven has been an analytics influence coach for a long time. Even when his father, even when Bruce was the head coach, when I would talk with Steven, I mean, the analytics play a big part. And I think that goes all the way back to his time when he was on the staff together with Todd Golden, the head coach at Florida. They're very good friends. In that manner, I think they coach a lot alike. That analytics part of it influences how they coach. And listen, Steven and Bruce are 2 different people. And I think Steven is still finding his way as far as his personality when it comes to being the head coach at Auburn. It's probably going to take a while for that to happen. But there's no question that analytics play a big part in how this team scouts, how this team practices on his approach moving forward. I mean, he has those numbers every time I interview him for a pregame show, a postgame show, for Tiger Talk right here on Jocks. I mean, that's a big part of it. And that is a difference between Steven and Bruce Pearl. But it was an influence on Bruce Pearl as well, because Steven was the associate head coach on that team, the defensive coordinator on that team. And watching this staff work together, watching this staff scout, Mike Burgermaster had the scout for this game, and of late he's had a lot of the big game scouts, and their game plan going into Florida was tremendous. And then Auburn, the guys on this team, the players on this team, fulfilled that game plan on Saturday. Now, listen, all of that to say, you get ready for another team that's playing really well coming in Texas tomorrow night. We'll have the broadcast 5:30 right here on Jocks tomorrow night. A Texas team that beat Georgia by 20 on Saturday, and that's a good Georgia basketball team. Ask Auburn how good that Georgia team is. But what Texas did Saturday in Austin, and a second half where it just pulled away from Georgia, I know that has the attention of this Auburn team. And then, oh, by the way, you go to Tennessee, of course, which pulled off the big upset last Saturday against Alabama. So after a huge week for Auburn with 2 big road wins, now 2 more big games with Texas at home tomorrow night and on the road at Tennessee Saturday night.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and Tennessee, maybe they found themselves last week as well. They looked really good on Saturday night. So yeah, 2 very tough teams, and the battle of the UTs next couple games for the Auburn Tigers.
Exactly
I want
right.
to move into football as we visit with Andy Burcham,
Yeah.
the voice of the Auburn Tigers. I feel like we've talked so much about Alex Golish and Byron Brown and all the offensive guys. What we haven't talked about is DJ Durkin at all. I mean, we haven't talked about him at all. And how things are kind of working with Golish and him. Like, how is that dynamic going so far?
I think that good dynamic has gone very well. And I credit both men for that, but maybe DJ Durkin even a little bit more. And that's not a slight to the head coach at all. But think about DJ Durkin, who, I thought really did a good job as Auburn's interim head coach down the stretch after Hugh Freeze was let go. And there was, he wanted the job as the head coach and did not get it. And yet decided that if given the opportunity, he would stay at Auburn. He loves living in Auburn. His family loves being here. But, that's a blow when you don't get that job that you're working for. And yet, and I think Alex Golish was smart to want DJ Durkin to be part of this staff, and I think DJ Durkin did a masterful job as Auburn's defensive coordinator for the last couple of years. And watching the way that they have worked in the transfer portal and how they've addressed the many needs of this roster, and have worked together. That's not an easy thing. That's not an easy thing for either of them. I mean, think about it. I mean, Alex Golish knows that this is a guy that wanted the job that he has. DJ Durkin knows that he didn't get the job, and yet they are working together for the betterment of this Auburn football program. I think they've done a really good job in this portal. I think they've addressed the needs that they have, and the roster is ready moving forward, and they're in their winter workouts at this point and getting ready for a late spring practice for Auburn that won't wrap up until mid-April at this point. But I've been impressed with the way this staff came together and the way this staff has worked together, primarily at this point in the transfer portal and addressing those needs, and now getting ready for this roster for the 2026 season.
Well, with 39 new players, and obviously Auburn is not a place that has relied that heavily on the portal, but in a regime change, it's completely understandable, especially knowing the success that Alex Golish had with some of the players he brought with him from South Florida. But how is that integration going with all these new faces, all these new players, several of which were handpicked by Golish himself to come to the Plains and to be a part of this rebuild and to be a part of establishing the foundation? Based on what you've heard through the first couple weeks of practice and first couple weeks of workouts, how is that integration going with all these new faces?
I think it's going as well as it can, and that's a lot of getting to know guys real quick at this point, in a certain degree, because there are several players that along with several on that staff at South Florida that came north to Auburn, that have been around a good many members of this staff have been integrated into the Alex Golish offense, and I think that will help in spite of the fact that there are so many new faces to Auburn on this roster. A lot of these guys have played for Alex Golish. They have played in this system. They know what he needs. They know the offense. I think that will help. And especially on the offensive side of the ball is where we've seen almost all of those players come in from South Florida. I think that helps moving forward for Auburn right now. But, listen, I mean, there are so many guys that have come in on this staff from South Florida, from other spots, a couple that have stayed on this staff. And it's the same way with the team. There were so many that decided to hit the transfer portal, and Auburn has fulfilled those spots on the roster. And yet this is the time now where everyone gets to know each other and learn exactly what is expected of them in the winter workouts and before spring practice begins for this Auburn team. And I think they're working hard at it. And, we'll eventually get to see it. This is going to be a fascinating spring practice because spring practices in the past, I thought, had lost some steam at Auburn. But this spring practice is going to be fascinating. I mean, everyone's going to need a roster to get to know all the new players that will be part of this team moving forward. From what we gather, there will actually be a spring football game on the Plains, and that was going away. But there will actually be a competitive game, so that'll be something to look forward to for all of us. And then into the summer, and then that preseason workouts that will start in August will be incredibly important. Everything from now until that first game against Baylor in Atlanta will be just incredibly important. And I think this is one of Auburn's most important spring practices coming up that we've seen in a long, long time on the Plains.
It's going to be wild, and we'll get you out of here at this, Andy, as Andy Bertram so generous with his time today. Have there been changes to what they're doing in the weight room or from a conditioning standpoint? I mean, what is the most noticeable difference from what they've done in the past to now?
I can't answer that question, Mac. I have not been over there for those.
Why aren't you working out with the team, Andy? That's the simplest question. I mean, you should be going over there and getting a good grind in the morning, no?
You're exactly right, Mac, and I'll look into that just for you. But Leon, I mean, that's one of the new parts. I mean, it's a new strength and conditioning staff, so there's bound to be changes in the way things are going. But I can't speak to it personally, as you could tell if you just took a look at me.
I'm sure it's different. I'm sure it's slightly adjusted. I'm sure there's new tweaks. There's different philosophies, all that stuff. But Alex Golish knows what he's doing. I trust what he's doing. I fully believe that team will be ready to go from a strength, size, speed standpoint, and they'll be good. But Andy, we appreciate your time as always. And as always, you're brought to us by our friends at Craneworks.
And Rental Works offers a full line of rental equipment for any of your machinery needs. They offer operators for every type of equipment as well. They can supply the equipment you need, plus the man to do the job. Go to craneworks.com for a quote in Birmingham, Nashville, Mobile, and Huntsville. Hope you have a great day, Mac. Thank you, bud.
All right, you too, buddy. Andy Bertram joining us here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. If you missed any of our conversation with Andy, you can go and check it out on the podcast platform of your choosing. Just check out Mac and Cube. Go ahead and subscribe. Every single hour of the show is cut up into an individual podcast. You can always go back, check it out, take a peek, and you can always, of course, find out more on jocksfm.com. All right, now that we don't have much for the next 40 minutes. We don't have any guests. We don't have anything that we have to do. We're going to kind of open things up to you. That's where we're at. That's what we want to do. That's what we're excited about. Usually when Cole's out, we try to take some phone calls. So go ahead and give us a shout at 205-834-9450. You can also call us at 800-239-9569. I want to talk playoffs. I want to talk playoff expansion. I want to talk the stalemate that led to us maintaining the 12-team playoff format. What's good about it? What's bad about it? What I like about it? What I don't like about it? and where we could be going from here. We'll do it next on McElroy and Cubelic the Morning on Jock 94.5. Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the Morning on Jock 94.5. Moving right along here. It is Tuesday, January 27th. Really happy to have you here with us today. We will get into the 12-team playoff here momentarily. Just trying to figure out, are we really in a position to be able to crown a worthy national champion? Well, if you're looking for the national champion of GMC dealers, all you got to do is just look in Coleman. It's right up the road from us. It's Bill Smith Buick GMC. They have won the national championship. That's from General Motors. They've won it 5 years in a row. The Dealer of the Year will be announced again in March. I think they're in great position to win it again. They've won it 8 times overall. So to think we have the national champion right up the road from us, we have a dynasty right up the road from us is tremendous. It's great to know that we can just get in the car and be there right up I-65, exit 310, Highway 31, about 30, 45 minutes, depending on where you're at. You can be there in no time and save $12,000 off the sticker price of a new GMC Sierra 2500 Denali Ultimate. That's right, 2500 Denali Ultimate, 97.5 is the list price. You get it for 85.5. It's deals like that that keep people coming back. That's why I'm a repeat customer. That's why 75% of their business is a repeat customer, because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. Take the short drive to Coleman. You can go see Andy Cole and Jonathan Yeager in person, or you can shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com. All right, the 12-team playoff. Talked about it briefly yesterday, but there's more to unpack, all right? We got the white smoke from the chimney in Dallas, right? The commissioners have gotten together. That's 10 commissioners. That includes the athletic director of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The headline is, nothing's changed. Not entirely fair. There have been a couple tweaks. But for those of you that were anticipating, like most of us, a move to a 14-team or a 16-team or a 24-team college football playoff model, you can kind of shelve that dream for now. Because as of this moment, we're going to stay at 12. I think it's the right decision in the near term, partly because we don't need to overexpand without really compelling research that would help us understand whether or not that playoff format would be beneficial. Like, we need to go through focus groups. We need to have anonymous sources. We need to have anonymous reviews. We need the data. And would the 12-team playoff diminish the regular season? That's the real question. Or the 24-team playoff, that is. Would the 16-team playoff potentially diminish the regular season? I personally don't feel like the 16-team would destroy the sanctity of the regular season. I think it would be highly compelling, partly because our first 2 years of the 12-team playoff era, we've had teams left out that could have made a run. That's the reality. I mean, could Miami last year have made a run? Could Ole Miss last year have made a run? Could Alabama have made a run in 2024? Probably not, but maybe. All those things are possible. Fast forward to this year. First team left out was the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think many believe, self included, that team, had they made the 12-team field, would have made a run. They would have had a chance. It would have been entirely possible. The Texas Longhorns this year, they were on the outside looking in. Played a very difficult non-conference game in week 1 on the road at Ohio State. Lose that game. If they don't play Ohio State, they play Little Sisters of the Poor, and they're sitting there at 10-2. Would the evaluation of the Longhorns have been different? And had Texas gotten in, given the way they played in the final game of the season, or the final couple weeks of the season, could they have potentially been a dangerous team to play? Yes. So the way I view it is that, yes, going to 16 does include teams that could make a run based on the 2-year precedent that we have up to this point. Now, the problem with going to the 16-team format now is it required a concession to, after 2 years, expand to a 24-team model. And that, to me, is not something I'm ever going to be on board with. You could tell me all the formats in the world. You could tell me all the reasons in the world why it's important to put 24 teams in, and it gives you more home playoff games. It gives the teams that are ranked at the top a real advantage based on seeding. You can tell me all that stuff, whatever you want. I'm never going to be supportive of a 24-team model, ever, ever. I come from the world of the BCS. That was the era that I played in, and naturally, that was the era I grew up with. The BCS was implemented when I was 10 years old. I watched the Tennessee Volunteers win the national championship. I thought it was the coolest thing ever to have the top 2 teams play against each other. I didn't really care how they arrived at the top 2 teams. I don't care about the computers. I didn't know anything about the computers as a 10-year-old. I didn't even know what a computer was. I was 10 years old. But I loved that game. I loved watching the Oklahoma Sooners. I loved watching the USC Trojans. I loved watching the Texas Longhorns. I loved playing in it in 2009. It was amazing. Because our SEC championship game was a de facto semifinal. We win, we're in. We lose, we're out. Same way in 2008. Win, you're in. Lose, you're out. The winner of the SEC went on to win the national championship an awful lot in the BCS days. And then we went to the 14 playoff. I was good with that. Didn't feel like we were going to reward mediocrity by expanding the playoff to 4 teams. You still had to really tightrope your way into the college football playoff field. And if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look back at my notes, but I don't think there was a team with 2 losses that ever made the 4-team playoff. You had to have 1 loss or 0 losses to make it in. And in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, you had to win your conference. So I found that to be very, very compelling. You had to be nearly perfect to make the 4-team playoff. And then we got to an era now where they're at 12. And I actually think it's been well received. So Damian, get to you on this. How do you feel like the 12-team playoff has gone in these first 2 years?
I think it's gone okay. My biggest issue is kind of the G5 situation. I think we at some point we've got to get past the 12 most deserving to the 12 best. And again, it's year-by-year basis. But I think 12 is an ideal number if you get the 12 right. And again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder year to year. But there has to be some sort of consistent criteria from year to year as well, because I do think sometimes we kind of talked about it going on this year where strength of schedule mattered halfway through the season, towards the backstretch, and then things started to change of what the committee started to, hold precedent, and then started going to head, and it's like, okay, well, where was this 3 weeks ago? So I think there's a lot of moving parts that they're going to have to try to wrangle in. But I think 12 is the ideal number. And to your point, too, that, I do think there were teams on the outside looking in that could have made a run, but that still puts the emphasis on the regular season. Had you handled your business early on in the regular season, then you wouldn't be on the outside looking in. You would have solidified your spot in the college football playoff. But I think year to year, it's almost a reflection period where you have to look at the total body of work week to week. And I think there has to be some more consistency of just where the committee's head is at, and a little bit more transparency.
That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I feel like everyone that complains about their team not getting in, oh man, well, it just, we didn't make it. This is unfair. You controlled your own destiny when the season started. Like, you go out there and you handle your business, then it doesn't become a something that's in the judge's hands. Like, never let it go to the judges is something we always say. Like, just go out there and handle your business, and we're not even having this conversation. And I do think people struggle with why the, quote, criteria changes year to year. I don't think it necessarily does. I think the criteria is very, very consistent. But the data points, when trying to assess who's better, changes from year to year. Like, that's the hard part. Like, normally, like 2 years ago, it was almost all about win-loss record. I don't think many people believed that SMU was one of the top 12 teams. Nobody believed that. But their win-loss record reflected that they be included. It was not a surprise to anybody to see them get in the field a couple years ago in favor of Alabama and in favor of Miami and in favor of the other 2 teams they were being measured against in Ole Miss and South Carolina. It wasn't a surprise. I think we all expected it. So win-loss record carried the day in 2024. In 2025, it was conference championship game participation and head-to-head. It's pretty simple. And oftentimes, win-loss record is going to be the most important data point. That's if you're not 10-2 or better. This year, Alabama got in at 10-3, but if you were to cut things off in the end of the regular season, they played on conference championship Saturday. The 2 teams they were being measured against in Miami and Notre Dame did not. So, therefore, you take a snapshot of Alabama at that point, after 12 data points, and you compare them against the two teams that weren't playing. To me, it was not a hard thing for people to stomach. And a lot of people had a really hard time understanding why Alabama was in. Well, I didn't. I was pretty honest throughout the whole process and saying, watch, guys, like Alabama's not going to be left out. They do not want to de-incentivize conference championship participation. Nobody wants to do that because you want to give the conference championship. If you get in, you should be rewarded for earning your way to play on that last Saturday of the regular season. If you earn your way in, they're not going to hold that against you when the teams you're being measured against don't have to play. I mean, to me, it was not a hard thing to stomach. Now, people will look at how Alabama lost the SEC championship game. People will look at how they eventually lost to Indiana. I get that. They were terrible performances, both of them. But it didn't surprise me that they got in the field. People now will look back and say, well, Bama wasn't as good as Notre Dame. Maybe not. We don't know that for sure. Maybe not. Would Notre Dame have been a more capable team to make a run? Probably. Right? Notre Dame a little more balanced. Notre Dame has great weapons at running back, quarterback, and the passing game was really good as well. The defense was playing excellent down the stretch, but they didn't play anybody. They had a strength of schedules in the 40s. If Alabama played a strength of schedule in the 40s, where would they have been? Would they look a little better? Probably, right? Would their flaws have been as exposed? Probably not. So it's hard to kind of measure all of that. We keep moving in a direction of, oh, well, we're going to utilize strength of schedule more. It's going to be weighed more heavily. It probably should be. I'm never going to push back on that. If you play a hard schedule against a team that played nobody and your win-loss record isn't quite as good as the team that played nobody, my argument's always been, okay, well, what would their record have been had they played the same schedule? Would it be the same? Would it be worse? It's hard to gauge those things. But everyone always goes up, well, eye test. I think eye test is great. I feel like I'm qualified to use it. Eye test last year, Notre Dame against Alabama, I think Notre Dame was the more impressive team. But I also take into account that Notre Dame played against a bunch of really bad teams. And it's easy to look good against really bad teams. If Bama got to play Wisconsin every week, their record would have looked a whole heck of a lot better than it did. Their energy level in the tank at the end of the season would have been a whole lot different than it was. Alabama, after playing awful in week one, had to go on an emotional gauntlet of an 8-9 game stretch in which every week was do or die. Like, that's exhausting on a team. And when their back was broken against Indiana, they shut it down. And it was disappointing. But I understand why it probably went the way it went. They shut it down. They were emotionally spent at that point after the 17-point comeback against Oklahoma. Emotionally spent. And when they didn't get that 4th and 1, and when they had that touchdown at the end of the half, that is what broke them. And they couldn't bounce back from it. And you know what? They're not the first team to do that. And everyone says, oh, well, this Alabama team does this. I saw an Alabama team flat out quit under Coach Saban in the 2018 National Championship, in which defensive backs are faking injuries not to play. So, like, it's happened before. And it'll happen again. So, I think that when you look at the 12-team playoff versus the 16 versus the 24, and I want to get your calls on it, we see you on the line. We're coming to you. We want to take a quick break. We come back with your phone calls. Are they right to stay at 12? Should they have gone to 16? But with going to 16 would have required a concession to go to 24 at some point in the future. I want to know your opinion on it next on Mac and Cube. Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning on Jock 94.5. Look forward to taking your phone calls. Talking a little college football playoff. Did they do the right thing by staying at 12? Or would you have been in favor of expanding to 16, but knowing that if you expand to 16, you're inevitably going to 24 at some point in the future? Let's go to Theo in Coleman. Theo, how are you?
Doing good. How y'all doing this morning?
Excellent. Thank you for calling.
What and not going the don't want to turn it into the same tournament that the basketball tournament is, but what about qualifying some of these regular season football games as like quad 1, quad 2, the same way basketball does?
I think they're doing that already. I think it's done. I don't know if it's necessarily been coined with terms like that. But I do think there are parts of the evaluation process. Remember, it's a lot of analytics driven. They rely on those things, whether they're weighted or not. There are football minds in the room too. So former head coaches, not just on the committee, but work for the college football playoff, they're employed. I think if there's a question from a football standpoint, they'll call in those coaches that work for the college football playoff to help kind of iron things out. But they also, I think, do have some sort of quad 1, quad 2 system where they give you a quality win or against a top 25 team win. Like, they've cited that many times in their explanations.
Okay, so that could be why on paper Notre Dame didn't get in and Alabama did. But I agree with you. If those two teams play each other at the end of the season, I think Notre Dame ends up winning that one.
It definitely feels that way.
Coming from a big Bama fan, yeah, that.
It feels that way, but do we know?
Yeah.
That's the real thing. Yeah. It's like, I don't disagree with you. It certainly feels that way. If they played on a neutral site at the end of the year, I would have leaned Notre Dame. But does that mean that that's a for sure? Should we bank on that? With the difference in the strength of schedule being 40 spots and them having the exact same regular season record? That's where I think it's a challenge. I mean, Notre Dame lost to two teams that were quality teams. No doubt about it. They lost to Miami and they lost to Texas A&M. They lost to two playoff teams. Those are the only two high-quality teams they faced with the exception of USC, and they beat USC by 10. Alabama beat Vanderbilt, a team that's better than USC, by 16 or 17. I don't know. Whatever that record may be, I think it's hard to say. Like, that's the tricky part. And while I understand completely why it definitely looked better for Notre Dame with how they were playing and executing at the end, it wasn't against anybody. If Alabama were to play against the likes of, I don't know, Boston College and NC State and teams like that, would it have looked different? Perhaps. Would they be playing with a little more confidence? Sure. Would they have as much mental fatigue? Probably not. Those are all real factors, I think, when you take all that into account. Let's go to John in Florence. John, how are you?
Man, how y'all doing, fellas? How y'all doing?
Appreciate you calling, my friend.
Yeah, man. First off, I just want to say, man, y'all get some guys through some cold and hot mornings in the elements out here. Y'all spark a lot of debate, and I appreciate the show. But first of all,
well, I appreciate you listening.
I myself, and I know this won't happen, but as a college football junkie, I myself would have been in favor of a reorder and maybe even a reshortening and taking it to 5 and taking maybe 2 games off a regular season schedule and having play-in games instead of having all of those teams in. That way, having what goes on the field matter as opposed to having all the teams. But that's just me. You know what I'm saying? I heard you say it before. But on top of that, then I want to ask you this, and then I'm going to hang up and listen. Greg McElroy, class of 2027, 5-star quarterback. You are committed to Ohio State, and you have offers from all the big dogs. With the landscape of college football today, does Greg McElroy still take that big plunge and go to Alabama, Ohio State, or does Greg McElroy go to Toledo or somewhere like that and get reps and film and then transfer up as opposed to going and possibly getting buried, getting portaled every year? Thank you for taking my call. I'll listen.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for calling. I mean, if I'm a 5-star, I'm probably not going to Toledo, with all due respect to the Rockets.
He changed the game, man.
But I understand what he's saying. Like, are you better served sitting and waiting your turn, or are you better served going somewhere, getting tons of reps, and then transferring up, a la Drew Mestamaker at North Texas, who ended up having a great year as a redshirt freshman, and then transferring up to Oklahoma State. And now it feels like he's ready, poised, coiled, what have you. All that's completely fair. Me, I'm always going to be a tradition junkie. Like, I am a tradition junkie. That's my thing. And I didn't know that about myself, but there was something God was telling me I needed to go to Alabama. You know what I mean? Like, it was something calling me there. I'm not from here. I'm from Texas. There was just something about the tradition, something about the expectation level. This is before we were anything. We were not good as a program. There's something that was calling me to go to school there. 2027, if it's still me, I'm still a tradition junkie. You know, so I would naturally gravitate towards the Blue Bloods. And every one of these guys has an internal belief that they can go and be the guy. And I'm going to go and I'm going to beat out whoever they portal in. Bring them in. I don't care. I'm going to win. So I'd go to one of the big programs. No doubt about it. It wouldn't even be close. I'd go to one of the big programs and I would have faith in myself to be able to get it done. Damian, what would you do in that circumstance?
Oh yeah, man. I'm going to be, and it's a little bit different too because I play receiver. Like if I can get in early at like an Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Ole Miss, yeah, I'm going to be there.
I think so. And look, I think it's different strokes for different folks too. Like for me, going north would not have been an option. None. I don't care what the NIL was. I'm not a cold weather guy. I don't think I left my house voluntarily yesterday. It's not my thing. Call me soft. I will totally 100% embrace that label. I'm a quarterback. I want to be able to throw 365 days a year outside. I want that. That's the way I like it. So I would have stayed south. That's for me what would have been a real priority. I don't want to play in the elements. I don't want to play in the snow. I don't want to play in 30-mile-an-hour winds. I want to be in a controlled setting, and I want to go somewhere where the people, if we lost, took the losses as hard as the players themselves. I wanted people to care. So would have been a short list, but I think I ended up exactly where I was supposed to end up. And I think if I could do it all over again, I'd go to Bama 100 times out of 100. I wouldn't even now. I love it. I absolutely love it. So that's me, but everyone's different. And NIL has certainly changed the game when it comes to those things for sure. Keep the phone calls coming. Richard Cross coming up in about 9 minutes. Give us the Ole Miss side of the Dabo Ole Miss debate. We'll do it next on Mac and Q. Welcome back to McElroy and Cubelic in the morning on Jock 94.5. Been a great second hour. Talked a little playoff. Got a couple phone calls in there as well. We can continue that conversation here in about 20 minutes or so. Talk a little playoff. Continue to kind of unpack what's going on between Ole Miss and the Clemson Tigers, or more specifically, Dabo Swinney. To help us get into that, we will have a conversation with Richard Cross here in just a little bit. He'll be kind of looking at it more from the perspective of the Ole Miss Rebels. Earlier in the show, we heard the Clemson perspective. Now we'll hear the Ole Miss perspective just to kind of balance things out. But there is some official news out of Mobile, Alabama. Damian, have you seen the news out of Mobile?
If it's what I think it is, then yes.
Diego Pavia.
Oh, boy.
Quarterback of the Vanderbilt Commodores, runner-up in the Heisman Trophy, listed at 6 foot on Vanderbilt's team website. Well, he's at the Senior Bowl, and his official height measurement at the Senior Bowl was 5'9" and 7/8.
Not that much taller
Damian,
than me.
your thoughts?
Not that much taller than me.
No, you might even have him.
It depends on what shoes I wear.
All right, when we come back, Richard Cross will join us next at Mac and Cube.